Becky.
I'm actually on time.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I am just closing things on here. Oh, look at that.
Hi, Carrie. Hello. So I am recording the session because there are some people that have registered but aren't able to attend tonight. So I have muted you all. But if you do want to ask a question or jump in at any time, just feel free to unmute yourself. And for all of those that are joining that do not have their beautiful faces showing on screen, I encourage you to show your video so I can see who I'm speaking with. And but if you're not comfortable with that, I totally understand that too. So we will just give everybody a couple of minutes to join and hop on. Go. Can everybody hear me okay? I have muted you all, but if you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. Great. All right, I'll just give us another few seconds. I think there's just one more person potentially joining, and then the other ladies are going to be receiving this recording. I wanted to let you all know as well that I will be sharing the notes with you from tonight's sessions. So definitely don't feel stressed about trying to have to write everything down. You'll get them all after the session tonight. And if you would like, cross fingers that the recording will work. But if you would like, I can also share the recording with you for later on if you want to re-listen further down the road. So we are going to get going, and I just want to welcome you all tonight, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We all have choices about where we would love to spend our time, and I'm just grateful that you chose to spend it with me, but more so grateful that you chose it to spend it with yourself, to take this time to really listen, to learn, and to fully be inspired about all that you can do to optimize your health, be preventative if you're trying to prevent breast cancer. If you're in the fight with breast cancer currently, there's many things that I'll share tonight that you can do to support yourself. And if you've conquered breast cancer, there's so many things that you'll learn that you can also do to revitalize and rebuild your body after. So I wanted to just share with those who have not done any work with me and who don't know my work at all. Of course, my name is Amy Bondar, and I've been practicing nutrition for the past 17 years. And I've dedicated my professional life to inspiring, educating, and guiding women to realize the significant impact nourishing the body, the mind, and the soul have on achieving optimum wellness. And in my practice, I focus on those three areas, the body, mind, and soul. And the body really means physically awakening my clients to the power of food and showing you that there's so much that we can do with nutrition and plant medicine that can optimize our health, improve our symptoms, alleviate conditions, and just move us to a greater state of energy and vitality. Nourishing the mind is where I really help my clients resolve the conflicts and stresses that are often at the root of our unwanted eating behaviors, our weight challenges, and even the manifestation of illness in the body. And thirdly, nourishing the soul is all about working with my clients to really find what their mission and their purpose is, to really encourage them to live an ideal day, a fulfilled day, because what we find is that a lack of mission, a lack of purpose, a lack of daily fulfillment can absolutely contribute to health challenges, unwanted eating behaviors, and even illness within the body. So tonight, as I share this lecture with you, we're going to actually dabble into three of those levels. We're going to talk about nutrition. We're going to talk about the mental and emotional contributing factors to breast cancer and hormonal imbalance. And we'll also talk about the soul and how that plays a role within this area of health. And so I do want to share tonight, this session is also very special to me. My mom is a 20-year breast cancer survivor. My sister-in-law sadly passed away 4 years ago from breast cancer and left behind 3 children and her husband. And my other sister-in-law recently conquered breast cancer. And so it's definitely close to my heart, close to my breast, but I have been teaching this session since 2008. And I now, since Celeste has passed away, I dedicate this session to her every year that I'm able to teach it, knowing that she was a nurse educator and practitioner, and her desire was to always educate women to improve their health. So I know that she is here and part of this session in educating you ladies. So thank you again for joining me. So I am just going to share the screen here. And so I will just be smaller on video, but I will be showing you my notes here. I want to say too, before we jump in, because there's lots of information I'm going to share with you tonight, that I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by it. What I want you to do is really tap into what resonates with you. I'll be sharing so much information, and you're not going to take it all in and just start changing things all of a sudden. But there may be a handful of things that I say tonight that really speak specifically to you, and you'll know what those are. And those are the things, those are the key things that I encourage you to take away with and work on, because the slightest eliminations, additions, and adjustments to your diet and your lifestyle can make the most tremendous difference, not only in how you feel, but what's happening in your cellular body. And so, whatever those things may be for you, please take those and know that that's what your body is asking for you to do and moving forward. Okay. All righty. So, here we go. For the love of our breasts, ladies, let's nourish body, mind, and soul. So, what's really important to understand when we're looking at breast cancer and hormonal imbalances within the body, it's a multifactorial approach, meaning there's so many contributing factors that can turn on cancer genes within the body and impact our hormones. I can't focus on all of them, but the key things that we are going to focus on in the time that we have tonight are nutrition, specifically imbalances and poor nutritional lifestyle. We're going to take a look at some environmental toxins and how that can impact our body. We'll talk about stress and how that affects our hormones. We will look at the mental and emotional field and specific shocks and traumas that are linked to breast cancer. And we'll also talk about what happens when we have a spiritual disconnect to our mission and purpose. So that is my goal to achieve in the time that we have. So to begin the conversation, we need to talk about the liver. So this is where the story begins in terms of prevention. But also, if you are in the fight of breast cancer currently, this is also something you want to really consider, because our liver is so important, not only to balance our hormones, but it is the key organ to clearing all the excess hormones from the body and the toxins from the body. So this is important because if we have a toxic liver, we get a lot of stagnation and a recirculation of toxins, and that's what can contribute to a host of issues within the system. Oftentimes I'll have women come to me, usually especially in their late 40s and 50s, who have a really hard time losing weight. And it's not always about what they're eating or not exercising. It's more so because there's decades of lack of detoxification and a very stagnant and toxic liver that needs to be taken care of first before the body can even shift. So we really need to focus on taking care of our liver. And this entire nutritional session is going to really teach you how to do that. It's also important to know that the liver is where we manufacture, we make cholesterol, and cholesterol is considered the mother hormone, and it produces all of the sex hormones like our estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, and DHEA. And what happens is that if we are not eating enough good fats in our diet, which is very common for women, especially women who went through the Heart Smart era back in the 80s and 90s and really restricted fat from the diet, when we take away fat, we don't produce enough good cholesterol, and therefore we can't make all of our great sex hormones. And that really impacts our hormonal balance. So it's very important, as I'm going to teach you tonight, that we have enough good fat in our diet to ensure that hormone production is happening right at the get-go. Oftentimes, we see women really struggling with their belly fat, their midsection. Oftentimes, that is a sign of an estrogen belly, which is really meaning toxic liver as well. So, again, what happens is we have too much toxicity within the body. Those toxins get stored as fat cells, and that can really impact the balance between good estrogen and bad estrogen. And so really the key is that if we keep our liver healthy, we can really ensure that the good estrogen is staying sort of balanced within the system, and we're not converting it into cancer promoting estrogens. So there's a really excellent resource that I like to refer to. Lorna Vanderhaeg, many of you may be familiar with her. She's a naturopathic doctor, and she's known for her book Sexy Hormones, and she also has a wonderful supplement line for women designed specifically for women. But she talks about the importance of estrogen metabolism, and she says that estrogens can stay in their original form, convert to other estrogen, or convert to cancer preventative or cancer promoting estrogen metabolites. And so when liver health is compromised by either using prescription drugs, toxins, xenoestrogens that we'll talk about a lot tonight that are found in plastics, our cosmetics, pesticides, overuse of alcohol, and a poor diet, that's when estriol can be metabolized to 16 alpha hydroxyestrone. And high levels of 16 alpha hydroxyestrone can be breast cancer promoting. Whereas if we have a really healthy liver and we're detoxing our estrogens properly, then we want higher levels of 2 hydroxyestrone, and that's more cancer protective. So I share this tonight because so many women right now are dealing with estrogen dominant breast cancer, and that often is triggered by environment. Okay, and our environment can have the capacity to turn on or off our genes. And so just knowing how to take care of your liver and using food as medicine here is very, very valuable to preventing the estrogen dominant kind of cancer. So the following nutritional approach that I'm going to teach you is very hormone balancing and liver balancing. And what we know is that food is probably the most important factor to consider when working towards balancing our hormones. And another wonderful resource, if you have not heard of Dr. Veronique, I can't pronounce her last name, but Desonnières, um, she's written a beautiful book called Healed Breast Cancer Naturally, and wonderful, wonderful information in this book. But she specifically says food can turn on cancer promoting genes or cancer protecting genes. And so, as we talk about now how to build your breast healthy lifestyle, we're going to really think about food now, not from weight loss. That's what women really think about food solely as a place of losing weight. We're talking tonight about using food as medicine, using food therapeutically, and really awakening to the power of food to change your health. And so, where we begin with building a nutritional lifestyle and creating your foundations for wellness through diet is number one, by being a whole foodist. And so, what we want to do is eat food that grows and subsists in nature. We want to eat colorful, vibrant, whole, energetic food. So, for those of you who worked with me and have worked with me for years, you've heard me say this a lot of times. I'm going to share it again tonight, that everything in the universe has a vibration. Our cells, our body, our atoms, if you break open the atom, what we're made up of is frequency, vibration of light. Nature has vibration. Essential oils have vibration, and food has vibration. It's energy. And we resonate with the level of the energy of the food in which we eat. So the more colorful, whole, live, and energetic and vibrant our food is, the more our cells in our body vibrate at that same level of frequency. And when we vibrate at that same cellular frequency, we emit that energy. Okay, but if we don't eat that resonance from our food, if we're eating dead, dull, lifeless, colorless, processed packaged, refined food that just looks like blah and brown and has no vibrancy to it, the cells can only match that vibration. And so that is very low and very dull. And the cells have so much work to do, trillions of biochemical pathways to take care of. And so without that cellular vibration, the body can't do what it's meant to do to be well, to heal, and even be preventative. So important when you're going grocery shopping, when you're cooking, when you're preparing your food, and when you're sitting to eat and enjoy your food. You want it to exude vitality and color and vibrancy. And when you do that, you'll know that you're getting the best antioxidants, the best protecting nutrients from your food to keep you super well. So the nutritional program I teach is not one in particular. We know there's so many diets out there, and there is no one right diet. There's plant-based diet, there's vegan, there's vegetarian, there's paleo, there's keto, and there's 100 variances in between. And I tell you, in the 17 years that I've been doing this, I've played with them all, and I've used many of them with different clients. But the key is that there's no one right way. We are all unique. We are all different, and nutrition must be personalized and customized. But tonight we will focus on creating a foundation of the most important foods you can put in for hormonal and breast health. And those are going to be fruits and vegetables, your essential fats, good quality protein, superfoods, which I'm going to highlight tonight, and very specific pseudo, or what we call ancient grains. So this is really important. And also, if you are able, whenever you can, choose organic food as much as possible. And the main reason I'm saying that tonight for this conversation is because it helps us to reduce our toxic exposure. And so many of our foods, our soil, our crops are sprayed with herbicides and pesticides that really increase these xenoestrogens. These are called estrogen mimickers, which I'll talk about later. But if one of our goals to protect our breast health and to balance our hormones, one of the ways we can do that is by having more organic produce and food as much as we can. Okay? So 90% whole food vibrational lifestyle is what we're looking for. The next piece when we're building our nutritional foundation is that we need to balance our insulin. And ladies, this is such an important topic because insulin governs so many of our hormones. It's one of the most important hormones in the body, and it governs all of them, especially estrogen and cortisol. And I call it the trifecta. There's these three hormones, insulin, estrogen, and cortisol. They work together. And if one is elevated, the other one is elevated. And for women in particular, when all three of these are elevated, this definitely contributes to body fat, and it makes it very difficult to burn body fat despite how good your nutrition is, despite how much exercise you do. If you don't learn how to balance these three hormones, then that can really wreak havoc on the body, and especially with your other hormones. So what we know is that insulin resistance is a significant contributing factor to many estrogen dominant conditions. So many women who experience PMS, endometriosis, ovarian cysts, polycystic ovarian syndrome, infertility, heavy periods, fibroids, hormonal acne, uterine cancer, and breast cancer. These are all considered or have at the root of them insulin resistance and estrogen dominance. So this is important too, especially if you have young girls and girls who are teenagers and in their young 20s. If you are aware that they have these conditions, or you yourself had or have these conditions now in your younger 40s, before you hit your 50s and menopause, you want to take care of these conditions, because this is a sign that there's an insulin issue in the body, there's an estrogen issue, and likely a liver issue. And so for prevention, ladies, if any of these speak to you, then this is a really important thing to know now and take care of it now so that you can be more preventative and secure for later on down the road. But how do we get insulin resistance? This is a resource by The Wisdom for Menopause by Christiane Northrup. Many of us know Christiane. Heal Your Body, or Women's Body, Women's Wisdom is what she wrote, and she's written many beautiful books for women. But she writes about insulin resistance in such a perfect way, and so I share it with you here tonight. So what happens when we just have some glycemic stress is that if we fuel on a lot of caffeine, glucose, which comes from our refined grains, excess grains, and sugar. And if we're drinking a lot of alcohol, all those things create a stress response in the body, and that increases our epinephrine levels. And so epinephrine is one of our stress hormones, and that also raises cortisol, which triggers insulin production and insulin release. So the blood sugars will go up and then they'll crash, right? So if you're drinking a lot of coffee in the morning, maybe you have pastry in the morning, maybe you're just eating toast and no protein or fats in the morning, your blood sugars will will rise and then they'll drop. And then what will happen is you'll go into hypoglycemic tendencies or true hypoglycemia, and then you'll crave more of that. You'll crave more quick fixes like sugar or caffeine to keep your energy going. And so over time, the ups and downs and swings in the blood sugars lead to a thickening of blood vessels in the muscles, and then in the muscles first and then elsewhere within the body. And so what happens is that thickening prevents the insulin from getting across the vessel walls to help the muscle actually use blood sugars. And that builds up in the liver and muscles. And for many people, for many women, that can contribute to a fatty liver. So I have a lot of clients who come to see me in menopause, and they have a fatty liver, and it's because they've had years of hypoglycemic imbalance because their insulin and cortisol and estrogen have been playing some dirty tricks in the body, so to speak. So when this happens, then what happens is you're starting to go into insulin resistance. So the body responds to this by stimulating the beta cells of the pancreas to produce more insulin. And as a result, blood insulin levels begin to rise even more. And over time, the pancreas just continues to secrete more insulin until those blood vessel walls are so thick. And what happens is that the insulin just stays elevated, and then you become hyperinsulinemic, which basically means insulin resistance, which can lead to type 2 diabetes. So again, I share this with you from a preventative perspective, or if you know for yourself that you tend to hypoglycemic tendencies, you have insulin resistance or diabetes, this is very important to get this under control, because what we know is that elevated insulin is one of the most significant physical influences that contribute to silent inflammation in the body. And what we know is that cancer, along with many other chronic diseases, but especially cancer, it's a silent inflammatory condition. We don't feel it happening as it's progressing in the body, right? We don't know it's there until we feel a lump, right? And so we really want to make sure that we're controlling this foundational insulin, estrogen, cortisol now, so that we can again prevent the scare that we often get if diagnosed. So very, very important, ladies. So how do we balance insulin? Well, of course, we be whole foodists, as I mentioned, but we also be rhythmic eaters. This is really essential because so many people now are playing around with intermittent fasting, and we have messed our rhythms up, right? For many years, it was like eat three main meals a day with a small mid-morning, mid-afternoon snack. Then it was like do three main meals, but no snacking. Then it was grazing, and now it's intermittent fasting. And so we're confused. And what's happened, what I've noticed over probably the last 3-4 years as intermittent fasting became really popular, was that people's blood sugars are all over the place and their eating rhythm has become really, really confused. So what I have always taught is that the body likes to be in balance, and the body likes to be in balance with nature. And I believe we can use the wisdom of nature to balance our insulin. And so what that means is that when the sun is rising in the morning, the metabolic stimulate the liver detoxification within the body. So the body is at its peak. As power relates on our ability to burn calorie is most effective and efficient midday. And so that's really, really important. Sorry, ladies, I think somebody was trying to get into the into the room. So this is really, really important because this is when we want to have our largest meal is at midday. So especially if you are perimenopausal and menopausal and you notice your metabolic body is starting to slow down and you're noticing that you can't lose weight as well as maybe you used to be able to, having your largest meal at midday is very important when that sun is at its peak. And then mid-afternoon, the sun sort of lulls. It's in that little hover. And that's when we feel like we're in a little hover too, right? We feel like we're a little bit fatigued, maybe we're craving. And so it's important to have a small mid-afternoon snack here. And then when the sun starts to lower, when our digestive system starts to weaken and our metabolic body starts to go underactive, that's when we want to have a lighter dinner. And so if we work in rhythm with nature, we really help to balance our insulin. And when we do eat rhythmically, we maximize our energy throughout the day. We burn body fat, we prevent cravings, we balance our moods, we handle our stress better, and we prevent hypoglycemia and insulin resistance. But the truth is that everybody is different. So what that might work for me, it may not work for one of you on the call. And so some people are grazers. They need to eat 5 to 6 little snacks throughout the day. And some people do really, really well eating just 3 main meals and no snacks. And then there's other people who do well fasting. And so the question is that do we fast? Do we do this intermittent fasting or do we not? I believe it's important to find your personal rhythm to know what works best for you. But I also believe that it's really, really important to understand that the body goes through different phases and changes and cycles. And there may be a time where you need to be the grazer, and there may be a time where you need to go into intermittent fasting. So often in our 20s and 30s, we can do the 3 main meals a day with the mid-morning, mid-afternoon snack. But then frankly, as we get later on into our 40s and into menopause, we may do better with intermittent fasting. So sometimes we have to experiment, but the key is to not eat, at noon tomorrow for lunch and then the next day eat your lunch at 3, or skip breakfast today but eat it tomorrow. We always want to try to eat our meals at the same time every day and try not to eat 3 hours before bed. But if you're going to intermittent fast, so intermittent fasting basically helps to improve insulin resistance, burn body fat, turn on healing genes, and rejuvenate stem cells. And in fact, if anybody on the call actually does have cancer, they do actually recommend intermittent fasting. Dr. V, one of the resources I had mentioned, she definitely recommends intermittent fasting because it gives your body time, those healing genes time to rejuvenate, and to allow for the cells to die off and new cells to regenerate. So in that phase, it may be very helpful to try that if that works for you. But I've seen so many people intermittent fasting but not doing it quite well. A lot of people will drink coffee throughout the morning and suppress their appetite thinking that they're fasting. But the truth is drinking coffee, especially now bulletproof coffee is so popular with eating your MCT oil and your grass-fed butter in your coffee. That's not a true fast. So a lot of people are, thinking like, wow, I'm fasting for so long and I'm not eating now till noon. But the truth is that that's also negatively impacting your insulin and cortisol. So if you're going to intermittent fast, there is generally a rule. It's called the 16-8 rule, so that you're fasting for 16 hours and you're eating within a window of 8. So how that could look like is that maybe you're waking up, you brush your teeth and your tongue to remove the bacteria, and then you drink water. And ideally, you can add 1 to 3 drops of essential oil in your water, which we'll talk about later, but specifically the citrus oils, because they really help to support liver detoxification and they raise your glutathione, which helps. It's one of your most important antioxidants. So it's a great way to really clear out free radical damage in the body. And you may want to work out and sweat and move your body. And then your first meal, if you're going to intermittent fast, may come in at around 10 or 11 a.m. And that may look like a salad with protein and olive oil, with some protein on it, or a superfood smoothie, or an egg and veggie omelet. And I'm going to give you a bunch of meal suggestions later on in the talk, but this is just a quick example of intermittent fasting of what it can look like. And then perhaps a snack will come in at around 2 to 3 in the afternoon, and that could be a mug of bone broth or a miso broth if you're doing more of a vegan or vegetarian lifestyle, or something like a handful of walnuts and celery. And then dinner would be lots of veggies, especially cruciferous vegetables, which I'll highlight shortly, with some essential fat on them with a little bit of lean quality protein. So that is what an intermittent fasting day could look like if you're choosing that lifestyle. But most importantly, what I'm trying to get across here is that we must balance our insulin and find a rhythm that works for us and stick with it. And stick with it long enough until if it stops to feel good, if it's not feeling good anymore, then you try a new rhythm. But don't be all over the map every day. You want to have consistency so that your insulin stays stable, which will make your estrogen and your cortisol stable as well. Okay? So another way we balance our insulin is by balancing our macronutrients. And this is so important because our macronutrients are our foundations. Our macronutrients are our proteins, our essential fats, and our carbohydrates. These literally give the cells the energy they need to function. The cells feed the blood, the tissues, the organs, the hormones, and every cellular process in the body is dependent on if your cells are getting this right ratio of macronutrients. And again, we become so conflicted and confused in the nutritional world because every diet tells us to eat a different way. But I'm going to set you up with what works really well for hormone balancing. And again, specifically for preventing breast cancer. That's the focus of these macronutrients tonight. But what we know is that if you have an imbalance of protein, fats, and carbs, I see this all the time. This is the major thing that contributes to fatigue, to sugar cravings, to body fat storage, and metabolic conditions like high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and hormonal imbalance. So literally, as we tweak and adjust our macronutrients, which I'm going to teach you how now, that can be a game changer to what's happening at the cellular level of your body. So this is the ratio of macronutrients that I teach most of my clients. But again, remember that we are all different. And so there may be variances and variations within this, but typically for a generalized session, as of we speak about tonight, when there's many people on the call, this is what I'll work with. So let's talk about protein. Okay, so we're going to base every meal around a protein source. And protein's essential because it builds our lean muscle mass and it is our key source of amino acids. Amino acids produce the neurotransmitters in the brain. Those are our feel good hormones. So, if we're deficient in protein and specifically in amino acids, then we can often experience anxiety, depression, restless leg syndrome, and even migraine headaches. And so, if you experience any of these symptoms, one of the best things to do is check your protein profile and make sure you're getting enough. Animal protein is also high in zinc, and zinc helps to produce testosterone. And so it's really interesting because we see a lot of women actually have quite low testosterone and too high amounts of estrogen. And so sometimes by altering our protein intake, we can help to alter our hormone balance as well. Protein also helps to manufacture a specific enzyme called CP450, and that acts to protect the body and decrease the risk of breast cancer. And so there's a lot of conversation about whether we should be eating animal meat if we have breast cancer. There's a lot of conversation about should you eat plant-based, should you go vegan, should you do keto? And the truth is there's truth and benefit to all of them. There's benefit and drawback to every diet variation out there. But in my experience and working with functional medical doctors for 10 years in my practice and seeing lab work for a lot of people, a lot of women, we often see zinc, iron, B12, um, really low. And this is often, where we can get these nutrients through animal protein. The key is that we want to get our animal protein from clean quality sources if you're choosing to eat it. And so we want grass-fed red meat if we're going to eat that. We want wild game meat that has higher anti-inflammatory omega-3 fats, free range poultry, free range eggs, poultry that's free from hormones and antibiotics, and just generally lean quality meats. And in Alberta, we're lucky because we have lots of local farmers around us who do consciously raised meat and feed our cattles with grass and not grains and corn and soy. And our farming practices are much different than the US. So often we watch these movies and videos and read books that create a lot of fear in us about eating animal protein. But we have to remember that most of that meat is not coming from Canada. It's not coming from Alberta. It is coming from the US, where their farming is different. So if you are a meat eater, you don't have to be scared to eat meat. And if you're somebody that's restricted meat, but you might feel good on it, just choose better quality sources. And we don't need an excess amount of protein. It's not like we're sitting and eating like 8 to 10 ounces of steak every night, right? But having a few ounces, 3 to 5 ounces, depending on your body type, of protein at a meal is so satiating and grounding and offers you your nutritional foundation through protein. So here are some sources. So if you're doing a protein powder, I love collagen peptide proteins. I specifically like the brand New Earth Organics, which you can get at Blush Lane and Community Natural Foods. The Light Seller. It's a high vibrational company. Their products they just work so well. So collagen peptides is great for your skin, your hair, your nails, your intestinal lining. And if you're doing more plant-based, spirulina is a great great plant-based protein, and hemp seed is also a great protein powder as well. Personally, for me, I like clean. I like mono ingredients. So when I'm using a protein powder, I don't like to use something that's got like 15 different ingredients in it. I really mono to trio, like really try to keep them simple so that I know I'm just targeting my amino acid and protein content. So again, for me, I'll use collagen peptides in a smoothie. Um, Eggs, as long as your eggs are free range and pasture raised, those are your best quality eggs. I ideally recommend getting your eggs from farmers markets where you can ask them what they're feeding their hens. So you know that they're not being fed with genetically modified crops like corn and soy, which are in a lot of our egg crops right now, or our hen crop, or our feed, pardon me. Free range poultry. If you're tired of chicken and turkey all the time, opening the door to things like Cornish game hen and duck. Grass fed beef is a great source of protein and has higher omega-3 fats. Lamb. Organ meats. I know most people don't like organ meats. However, if you know your B12, your iron, your zinc are low, it's a really, really great source of protein to bring in a couple times a week. And if you're really not open to it, but you still know that those nutrient levels are low for you, you can take liver supplements as well. If you're eating fish, just choose wild caught low mercury fish. And I've listed the lowest of mercury fish for you in this list here. Legumes are a great source of plant-based protein. They're high in antioxidants, high in fiber, and as long as you can digest them, then they make a really good source of protein. But if you eat them and they cause cramping, bloating, indigestion, then that's likely not the best form of protein for you, or you may need to use some digestive enzymes to support the consumption of those. And again, if we are doing more plant-based protein, I'm going to talk about some of these when we hit the superfoods, but bee pollen, actually a teaspoon of bee pollen has enough protein to match the same amount of protein as a piece of chicken or a piece of beef, half a teaspoon. Spirulina is a beautiful superfood. And further on in the lecture, I'm going to give those, if there's anybody on the call that does have breast cancer, there's a specific dose that has been recommended for spirulina to help kill breast cancer cells. Hemp is awesome, 12 grams of protein and about 3 tablespoons. And of course, legumes and nuts and seeds. We do want to be careful though, if there are any vegetarians or vegans on the call, if we consume a lot of legumes and nuts and seeds, just know that those also have carbohydrates. So we just want to make sure that you're keeping your insulin stable and having a really balanced vegetarian lifestyle so that you're not messing with your insulin while you're eating all of these plant-based foods, okay? For dairy to avoid specifically for hormonal and breast cancer and thyroid issues, definitely dairy. Okay, so 80% of people do well and improve their thyroid conditions when they get dairy out of the diet. Estrogen dominant conditions, dairy is just an estrogen dominant food. And so it's not ideal at all when you're dealing with any estrogen dominant condition that I listed before. If you needed a little bit of like goat feta, a little bit of organic goat yogurt, anything like that, as long as you don't have a digestive issue or dairy sensitivity, a little bit will probably be okay, but I always recommend raw and unpasteurized cheese if you're going to use any. But please, no milk products. Really try to get rid of those as much as you can. And if you're eating things like ice cream, switch to a coconut-based ice cream, a cashew-based ice cream. It would be much better for your hormonal health than using dairy. And soy, we'll talk about soy a little bit later, but it's processed soy that you want to avoid because it's very estrogenic. And so if you eat non-genetically modified soy, fermented soy like miso and natto and tempeh, which are not commonly used in our society, but if you do eat soy, then those would be the sources versus going to tofu and a lot of like fake meats that are made with soy protein isolates and modified soy product. Okay. So those are your proteins. And the key, I don't work with numbers. I don't measure, I don't weigh food. I teach people to listen to their body and eat the amount of protein that feels right for you. Okay. And we do that by eating slowly and consciously and listening to what really works. Because listen, some people eat 3 ounces of protein and feel awesome, and other people eat 3 ounces of protein and are craving sugar and chocolate within an hour. For me personally, I'm a protein type body type. I do a lot of body typing, one of which is called metabolic typing, and I just do well on protein. And so I can't limit my protein amount. And there's many clients that I work with as well that are like that. So you have to know what's right for your body type and listen to your body as opposed to the masses and the nutritional dogma that's out there that can confuse our body wisdom and our intuition as to what is actually right for us. Okay. Let's move into the next macronutrients, are fats. And these are so important. We call them essential because they are essential. We cannot make them in the body. So they are essential to get them from our food. And so there's different families of fat. So the unsaturated fats is what we're looking at here. These are our omega-3s and 6s and 9s. So the polyunsaturated fats are really important. And these are our omega 3s and 6s. Okay. So omega 3s come from our fish oil, super seeds like flaxseed and chia, salba, and hemp. Okay. These are very, very important to bring into the body. And most people are very, very deficient in these omega 3 fats. Omega-6 fats will include things like evening primrose and borage oil, which we often turn to when we start to go into menopause. If we have hot flashes and menopausal symptoms, these are wonderful omega-6 oils to help support hormonal health, as well as other nuts and seeds, and even hemp have some omega-6 in there. So ideally, we want to have like a ratio of eating 1 omega-3 to every 4 omega-6 fats. Hemp seed, just so you know, has the perfect balance of a 1-to-4 ratio of a 3-to-6. If you take a fish oil, that's usually a perfect balance between omega-3 and 6. But what happens is that a lot of people are eating the wrong kind of omega-6. We're getting omega-6 from grain-fed red meat, from excess grain consumption, from vegetable oils, and this tips our balance, causing inflammation in the body. And so what we really, really want to do is try to cut out the bad omega-6s, which we'll talk about shortly, and introduce more of these 3s and 6s. Monounsaturated fats, these are considered our omega-9s. These are very neutral in the body. They don't really impact the hormones, but they're so good for cancer protection and heart health as well. So olive oil, avocado oil, olives, and nuts will fall into this category. Saturated fats, they're not all bad for us. We do well with butter. Ghee is clarified butter, which actually has anti-cancer properties. Grass-fed and free-range meats have the good saturated fat. And then there's our medium chain saturated fats that come from coconut oil and medium chain triglyceride oil, which is really derived from coconut oil. It's just got a higher concentration. The key to remember is that these fats don't make you fat, ladies. And for years, women feared eating fat because they thought it would cause weight gain. But fats in particular produce every hormone in the body. And especially if you have PMS, that's a number one sign that you have an essential fatty acid deficiency. And if you crave sugar, it's also a really, really big indication that you have a deficiency in fats. So we want to embrace the fats. We want to incorporate them because they feed our brain, they balance insulin. They really help to actually burn body fat because they balance insulin, and they lubricate our skin and our joints and our hair. So really, we need them for so many purposes. And I'm just going to share with you my list of good fats here. So we have fish, avocado, olives, raw unsalted nuts. I just put in walnuts and Brazil nuts because these are high in selenium, and we know that selenium is a very great cancer preventative mineral. Hazelnuts, almonds, and macadamia nuts. There's other wonderful nuts. These ones, just of all of the list, these are the highest antioxidants. And remember, antioxidants turn down inflammation, and they also quench cancer cells. So we need high antioxidants in the diet. Seeds are a great source of good fat as well. And if you're using any seed oils like a sesame seed oil, just make sure it always says unrefined, cold pressed, okay? Natural nut butters, so wonderful source of a good fat with a little bit of protein as well. And these are great to spread on an apple or on celery, and usually 1 to 2 tablespoons is a serving. For nuts and seeds, maybe 3 tablespoons is a serving. For an avocado, it's about half. For olives, depending how big they are, I don't know, it's an average of, who knows, 5 to 8, however many you think that you can eat consciously and slowly. Coconut's another great fat, whether you're eating, like getting a coconut and cracking it and taking the meat out of it, or buying desiccated, dried, organic coconut that's unsweetened, that's a great snack. Ground flaxseed. So this, ladies, right here is one of the most important breast-friendly foods. Ground flaxseed has lignans in it, and the lignans pull the excess circulating hormones out of the body and balance estrogens. They also prevent constipation, which is key to prevent toxins recirculating in the body as well. For breast cancer, if anybody has breast cancer on the call, 5 teaspoons daily is the dose recommended by Dr. V to help reduce tumor size. 5 teaspoons. That's not very much, and that's powerful. That's the power of food. Hemp seed and hemp oil. Hemp seeds, again, 3 tablespoons gives you 12 grams of protein, but it offers you that perfect balance of omega-3 and 6 fats. So simple to spread that on salads and oatmeal, stir fries, and put that into your smoothies as well. Chia seeds are wonderful omega-3 seeds, as well as salba seeds. And again, same way that you can use flaxseed and hemp seed, sprinkling them onto foods or putting them into smoothies. Extra virgin cold pressed olive oil is wonderful, never for high temperature cooking, but great for salads and to drizzle on top of steamed vegetables. Coconut oil is a wonderful oil, same with avocado oil for higher temperature cooking. But coconut oil specifically has anti-cancer properties in it. And so that's a wonderful oil to be using. It's also great for thyroid health, for energy production. And MCT oil, you know, that became really popular when bulletproof coffee got super popular in the last 5 years or so. And basically, MCT oil, it doesn't have to bypass the liver and the digestive system to get produced for energy. It just gets immediately produced for energy. And so a lot of people will use that as a great energy source. And it's also considered brain octane fuel. So it really helps with mental acuity, with concentration, with just feeling sharp and vigor and energized. So that's a really good one to add to a smoothie. And you don't need a lot, like a teaspoon to a tablespoon in a smoothie. And if you're drinking coffee, it can go in a coffee, or better yet, you can also add it to salads for a salad dressing. You could do a little mix of MCT and a little mix of olive oil and combine those together. Organic butter, grass-fed butter would be ideal, and clarified butter also has anti-cancer properties in it. Clarified butter, it just means that the whey and the casein, so the proteins of the dairy, of the milk solids, have been removed, and you're just left with the milk fat. And so that's a good natural fat, especially if it's coming from a grass-fed cow. And then fish oils, we'll talk about this more in the supplement section, but it's always great to add in a good omega-3 oil. And if you're more in your menopausal phase, you may want to consider adding in borage or evening primrose, okay? So these are our fats, and it doesn't take a lot, ladies, to really produce the hormones and to make us feel lubricated inside and out. So 4 tablespoons, or pardon me, 4 small servings, you know, it's olive oil on a salad, it's a handful of nuts for a snack, it's maybe some hemp seed into a smoothie, and perhaps you're, I don't know, having a snack of coconut somewhere in your day. So you can play around with how you use these oils, but just be conscious that they're coming in. The key with the fats is we want to eliminate our toxic fats, okay? We really want to get rid of low fat and non-fat foods. We want to obviously avoid trans fats coming from French fries and pastries and fast foods, etc. When they took trans fats out of a lot of processed packaged food, they did replace it with hydrogenated fat, thinking that that was a healthier choice because it was plant oils. But the truth is that so many of those plant-based oils, especially canola, soy, and corn, these are our top 3 genetically modified crops. And there's lots of information to show that genetically modified food really has a negative impact on our immune system and on our digestive health, specifically causing intestinal impermeability, or leaky gut. And so we really want to read ingredients in everything and do our very best to wipe this stuff out of the diet. This is where you go through your fridge, your pantry, your freezer. You read ingredients in everything that you have, because these are the things that are toxic to the liver. They take 6 months to clear out of the body, 6 months, because they're so thick. They're like, thick oil that just gets stuck within the intestines, within the liver. It's very hard to flush them out. And so they do impact the hormonal pathways. So definitely try to cut this stuff out as much as possible. And the truth is, the more whole food you eat, the less of this stuff will even be an issue for you. But these are the fats you want to get rid of, okay? So let's talk about our carbohydrates. So we've talked about our protein, we've talked about our fats, and now we move into our carbohydrates. And there's three families of carbohydrates, right? We have our vegetables, we have our fruit, and then we have our grains. So we start with our vegetables because honestly, you've never read an article anywhere that says eating too many vegetables cause breast cancer or cause any chronic disease or cause any illness, right? We always need to incorporate more vegetables, and variety is key. So many of us are just habitual and we choose the same, 3 to 5 vegetables every time we go grocery shopping. But you have to eat from the rainbow. The more color, the more variety of veggies you bring to your body, the more variety of nutrients you bring. And one of the functional medical doctors that I've worked with for years, his name's Dr. Darren Topham. He just wrote an article today, but he says that there are perhaps 10,000 phytochemical molecules in vegetables and fruit that have potent anti-cancer, health-promoting effects. So, we can't get those 10,000 phytochemicals from just a few vegetables. We need to bring in a plethora and a variety. So our vegetables is where our energy, our vitality, that vibration I was talking about at the beginning, this is where it comes from. And they have a high ratio or a high amount of fiber in them, which really helps to clear those excess hormones and toxins from the body. There's many different chemicals within vegetables, good chemicals, phytochemicals in vegetables, one of which is flavonoids. And these are specifically our anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory compounds. They're very high in antioxidants, and many of our vegetables contain phytoestrogens. And these are our naturally occurring plant estrogens that actually block the estrogens or reduce or detoxify estrogens out of the body. So these are the ones we want to bring in to protect us from bringing in environmental estrogens called xenoestrogens, which we'll touch on later. But there's some specific vegetables, especially that carry these phytoestrogens, and those are our cruciferous vegetables. These ones are so important to bring into the diet. Our broccoli sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, Brussels, Swiss chard, kohlrabi. This family of vegetables, ladies, this is our protection. We need to eat 1 or 2 of these a day to get our breast cancer protecting nutrients. I do encourage you to eat a variety of veggies, about 5 to 7 a day. 7 would be awesome, but most people are coming in at about 3 or 4. So really, really up the veg as much as you can have. And don't be scared to add vegetables to your breakfast. Don't be scared to eat them throughout the morning, throughout the day as snacks. Most times we just leave them for dinner. You want to bring them in throughout the day. And I'll show you how to do that when we get to the meal suggestions. And please, when you're having your veg, so many of our great nutrients in our vegetables, like beta carotene, for example, it's a fat soluble vitamin. So it needs fat to get into the cells. So we have to have our veggies with some good fat. So olive oil on salads or chopping avocado or nuts into a salad works well. If you have steamed vegetables, putting a little bit of grass-fed butter or drizzling some olive oil or MCT oil on will help that transport into the cell. Or if you eat raw veggies, dipping them in dips that have a good fat, like a hummus that's made with olive oil, or guacamole, of course, or an olive tapenade that's made with good olives and just olive oil. So those are all helpful ways to help those key nutrients to get where they need to go. Most importantly, please never microwave your vegetables. So when we talk about vibration, when we talk about living energy in food, microwaving destroys that. So you're basically just radiating a food at such a high temperature and so quickly that it just zaps any living enzymes. Anything that's living in a food gets destroyed. So you're really eating dead food when you're doing that. So wherever you can, please, please, please steam, saute, roast, put them in smoothies wherever you can, but do not microwave your veg. So I'm going to just share some families of vegetables that are really important for women. The cruciferous vegetables, like we've just talked about. So what is in cruciferous vegetables? There's a compound in them called indole 3 carbinol. I3C, and that helps to pull those excess circulating hormones out of the body, prevent breast cancer, and support that phase 2 liver detoxification. So that's why these are so important for so many levels. And also, a lot of women are deficient in calcium and vitamin K and sulfur, and these three nutrients are found in the cruciferous vegetables. One in particular is broccoli sprouts. Most women don't even use these at all, but these are highest in sulforaphane, and in fact 50 times more. They have 50 times more sulforaphane than any of the other cruciferous vegetables, and sulforaphane specifically helps to kill breast cancer cells. So what you do with broccoli sprouts is you add them to salads. If you made a bowl of soup, you just put them on top of your soup. You add them to the top of a stir fry. If you're making a rainbow bowl, you add them to, like, part of your rainbow in the bowl. There's so many ways to put these in, and frankly, you can even throw them in a smoothie. They are pungent, they are a little bitter, but they are potent little sprouts that really should be incorporated into the diet wherever you can. And you can get these at the health food stores, at farmers markets, and frankly, I've seen them in a lot of grocery stores with alfalfa sprouts and garlic sprouts, and then you'll see your broccoli sprouts. Okay. The onion and garlic family is very helpful. The beta carotene vegetables, so all our orange and purples and reds come in. Our mineral rich vegetables, so these are ones that are higher in selenium and magnesium, and are really important to the body. I want to just highlight microgreens and pea shoots. These guys, along with our broccoli sprouts, are really important. These little microgreens and pea shoots, these are the babies of the vegetable. So you can get, for example, broccoli microgreens or radicchio microgreens or kale microgreens, and they're just the little sprouts. But why they're so valuable is that they're really enzymatic. They're full of enzymes and they're full of minerals. And so before the plant becomes fully grown and oxygenates and depletes some of its nutrients, you're getting the most potent nutrients right from these little, I call them mighty greens, little mighty sprouts. And so these are easy to incorporate throughout your diet, adding into salads, but definitely want to incorporate these as well. I find Community Natural Foods and Blush Lane have a really beautiful selection of all of the microgreens that you could think of having. And then, of course, our liver supporting vegetables. These are all our leafy greens that many people don't even eat, but honestly, buy beet greens, buy dandelion greens, buy Swiss chard, buy kale. And the simplest thing to do is just chop up all these greens, saute them in some olive oil and some sea salt, drizzle a little bit of balsamic glaze if you want. And it's easy, and it takes a little bit of that bitterness out, but literally you can combine that with any protein that you eat in a matter of minutes. So again, it's just, they're not ones we normally gravitate to, but they, as I've been stressing through the whole hour so far, is just liver, and these guys are really going to be helpful here. Okay. And then seaweed, again, another little family of sea vegetables, which we don't often gravitate to, but these are also very helpful for breast health because they're high in iodine, and iodine helps to slow tumor growth, and it does just prevent breast cancer and thyroid issues in general. So adding some, you could buy dried seaweeds in the health food stores. Most grocery stores carry them now. If you make pots of soup or broth, it's a great thing to just add a handful of seaweed at the end of your broth. It'll dissipate and offers natural sodium and calcium infused into your soups. If you like nori is what they use to make sushi. You can buy dehydrated nori and just make wraps with that, and you'll see that in one of your meal suggestions. And little sea snacks. So there's many little seaweed snacks out there. I only recommend the Sea Snacks brand just because they're done with olive oil, whereas a lot of the other seaweed snacks are done with soybean oil or canola oil, which we've talked about are not the best fats to bring into the body. So lots of veggies, ladies. There's so much variety, but really, if I could highlight most important for this theme of tonight, your cruciferous vegetables, your broccoli sprouts, microgreens, pea shoots, really elevate these, and anything in that liver supporting family would be awesome. Fruit, I usually keep fruit to 2 to 3 pieces a day maximum. Fruit has so many antioxidants, so much fiber, but of course, too much fruit can affect insulin. So if you are insulin resistant, this is where you may consider reducing your fruit or only sticking to things like berries that are very low glycemic. But for the most part, I find people do well with a couple, fruits a day. And truly, if you get rid of all of your refined grains and sugars and processed food, you should not fear eating sugar. So many sugar from fruit. So many people fear eating fruit now because it's got sugar. This natural sugar. It comes from Mother Earth, from nature. It grows on trees, and it's balanced out with fiber and all of these antioxidants. So you really do stay protected as a result. So lots of different ones to consider: apples, pears, berries, cranberries, phytoestrogen food. Same with pomegranates, very good as phytoestrogens. Liver health fruits are lemon and lime. And then, of course, there's other citrus fruits that are so valuable. There's no bad fruit out there, truthfully. I just like to put in the lower glycemic fruits. And really the key is that when you're eating fruit, to keep your insulin stable, have it with just a little bit of protein or fat. So not mixed with a meat, but having it with a handful of nuts or an apple with some nut butter or berries in your smoothie. And that will just help to keep your blood sugar stable if you are concerned about your insulin. And of course, please, fruit juice did not grow on trees. The fruit did. So just cut any fruit juice, because that is a huge trigger for elevated insulin levels. Okay. So really, really important for that. And now our grains, our last part of our carbohydrate conversation is grains. And so these should always make up the smallest part of your diet. And the thing is that grains convert to glucose, and too much glucose converts to body fat and elevated insulin. And so then we know what happens to our estrogen and cortisol when all of those are elevated. When in my practice, listen, for 17 years, I see most people on average eating 5 or 6 grains a day. Most people are eating way too many. And even if it's 2 to 3 grains a day, that's also likely a bit too much, especially if you're insulin resistant, and especially if you're heading more into menopausal phase, even perimenopausal phase, because we just get more sensitive at that time to grain-based carbohydrates. The body, the insulin response is so sensitive at that phase of our lives that we have to be very careful with the amount of grain that we eat. So I always recommend watching gluten if you do have any inflammatory conditions, if you have any immune compromisation, and if your gut is compromised in any way, get rid of gluten. Gluten is the protein of wheat, rye, barley, spelt, and kamut. I can't tell you how much symptom improvement I have seen by just having people remove gluten. But specifically, if your immune system is compromised, if you do right now have breast cancer, I wouldn't be eating gluten. If you want to be preventative, if you want to turn down inflammation and restore the health of your gut, do your best by avoiding gluten as much as you can. If you don't truly have a gluten intolerance, I don't mind having people add in a little bit of kamut or spelt. Sometimes those make up better breads than buying a gluten-free bread if you're not truly gluten intolerant, just because a lot of gluten-free breads are full of starches and binders. And so by the time you're finished eating one piece of gluten-free bread, you've eaten so much carbohydrate, insulin spiking flours, that it's not really any better off. So if you're not truly gluten intolerant, then doing like a sourdough spelt bread from the Lakeview Bakery can be a good alternative source if you do eat bread. But honestly, any gut issues, any immune compromisation, cut it. And also from an insulin perspective, wheat is the highest insulin spiking grain. Other than like white flour based products, wheat is the next one on the list. So really try to avoid that to keep insulin stable. So what do we eat if we're going to eat grains? So most of the time I'm doing 0 to 1 grain a day. If you have gut issues, if there's hormonal issues, if there's a host of symptoms, whether it's skin issues, I often do a trial elimination of grains for 3 months, heal the gut, and then we reintroduce to see how well the body responds. But in general, 1 cup or 1 serving of grain a day works quite well. And choosing pseudo or ancient grains, meaning the grains that haven't been processed to the same degree that wheat, rye, and barley have, especially wheat, will work really, really well. So when you do buy grains, it is ideal if you can see them in a sprouted form, and always in a whole grain form, of course. But whenever you see a sprouted grain, it just means that there's more protein there. And so you're getting more of the germ part of the grain. And so there's more protein and fiber there. So again, more stabilizing for blood sugars. Okay. And our last macronutrient is water. We don't spend nearly enough time talking about water. And in fact, I got to do a whole article in my November blog about water. It's going to be called Change Your Water, Change Your Life. I personally have just changed my water. I've been drinking Monashi water for years, which I've always recommended. It's an alkaline water, but now I have found Kangen water, which is a super alkaline water. It's got a pH of 8.5 to 9. And so drinking alkaline water is essential because the truth is disease cannot grow in an acidic environment. And so this water is very alkaline, it's high antioxidant, and it's microclustered water, meaning that the water particles get transported into the cell. So often we drink acidic water that have macrocosmosis, tap water, Brita filtered water, even like what's it called? Callaghan water is very, very acidic water. Some of our bottled waters are quite acidic. These, Dasani is one of them. These are very acidic. And so what happens is you can often drink water and feel sort of slushy in your belly, like you're not actually even absorbing the water. Some people just feel like they're drinking and drinking and drinking and they're not absorbing. They're still really thirsty all the time, or they're just constantly just peeing out what they're drinking. So this just means that your water is not being absorbed intracellularly, it's being extracellularly held. And so changing the water is really important. And so I'm a distributor of Kangen water now, and I've been drinking it for 3-4 months now. And I mean, I don't want to be egotistical here. I don't mean to say this, but I've always had good skin, but I would say my skin is even more hydrated now and looking healthier, and energy is even up. And so highly recommend it, but that's a whole other conversation. But if you're interested in learning more, would like to sample some Kangen water, I'm happy to fill up a jug of your water and you can try it and see if you notice a difference drinking it. Okay. But back to water, just in terms of drinking enough, 1.5 to 2 liters is what we need. We really need that amount just to flush the liver, and so that's really important. So many people are drinking far less than that in a day. Really be conscious of how much and what you're drinking your water in. So stainless steel and glass bottles, please really get rid of plastics, because the plastics leak these xenoestrogens into your water and then you're drinking that. So be very, very careful of the kind of plastic that you're using. Usually on the bottom of a plastic bottle, you'll see the triangle with a number in it. If there is number 7, that is the worst plastic for leaching. So you're looking for a number 5 that doesn't leach, or buying something that specifically says BPA free. But just be mindful to drink from glass or stainless steel. And of course, an amazing way to enhance your water is to add essential oils to your water. So I use doTERRA. It's a leading essential oil company in the world. And lemon essential oil, for example, 1 drop is equivalent to 20 lemons being squeezed in your water. So 1 drop is so potent and so effective to flush that liver and to energize your body and create a proper pH balance within the system. Grapefruit's another great choice because it helps to balance progesterone, and it's really great for weight loss and to dissipate food cravings. And there's another one called Smart and Sassy that's their metabolic blend, which specifically is targeted for people who are trying to lose weight, balance insulin, detox the body. And it's got a blend of some citrus oils like lemon, grapefruit, and lime, but it also has cinnamon in it for blood sugars, and peppermint as well. So there's lots of choices, but 1 to 3 drops in a liter of water can make a profound difference to the enhancement of your water and your health. Antioxidant teas. So green tea and matcha, white tea, yerba mate and rooibos, and tulsi tea and moringa tea. These are, adding tea to your day, 1 or 2 cups is all you would really need, but it's such an easy way to enhance the antioxidants in your diet. And remember, antioxidants turn down inflammation and they quelch those cancer cells. So such a simple way, but knowing that your tea has purpose may make you want to drink it a little bit more willingly. I like to highlight rooibos tea because it's one out of this list that does not have any caffeine, and it's also good for anxiety. tea. Tulsi tea does not have anxiety, or does not have caffeine either. It's specifically very good for the adrenal glands, and it balances blood sugars. And moringa tea, moringa has lots of health benefits, and one of which is that it's cancer preventative, and it's very high in vitamin C, actually. So this is a really wonderful tea as well. So bringing in a tea either first thing in the morning or as a mid-afternoon insertion would be a wonderful thing to do. And of course, herbal teas are fine too. Just please ensure your teas are organic, because tea leaves, just like coffee beans, are heavily sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. So making sure your teas are organic is important. And you can very much target your teas. So we know that chamomile is a flavonoid, so that's very good for anti-cancer benefits. Dandelion tea targets the liver and detoxifies the liver. We can buy teas. There's one called adrenal tea, thyroid tea, meno tea for menopause. Sage tea is good for hot flashes. Raspberry leaf tea is just great for overall hormonal balance for women. But lots of teas available, and it's just about knowing what to use for what concern. But these ones are all wonderful. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about with your nutrition is supercharging your diet with superfoods. So I've just shared with you all of the foundational principles that you can put into your diet to really ensure balance and cellular health and vitality. But now what we can do is we can turn to superfoods, which really help to take the diet to a whole other level, because these are medicinal foods that have much higher concentrations of therapeutic nutrients than we can get from our everyday foods. One of which is medicinal mushrooms. So I started using medicinal mushrooms, gosh, I think maybe 5, 6 months ago, potentially. I use the brand again, New Earth Organics, the same brand that I was mentioning about the collagen. And mushrooms are so incredibly helpful for our immune system and for killing cancer cells. They slow tumor growth, and they're really helpful for supporting liver detoxification and promoting revitalization and energy within the body. If you have breast cancer, turkey tail is one of the medicinal mushrooms that's often used by uh, in natural breast cancer support. And so you can get that as a powder, you can get it as a tincture, but definitely one that I would highly recommend incorporating into your lifestyle. So medicinal mushrooms with this New Earth Organics, they have a few different options. You can buy any of the mushrooms individually, but the one that I've been using is called the five liver mushroom blend. And so I've been using that. And I was talking to some friends, over this past 6, 7 months. And of course, adrenals were tapped in because of everything going on in the world. And I definitely noticed that I was going through some hormonal changes and body changes as well. And what I'd noticed during PMS is that my breasts would get so sore and tender, more so than they ever have. And reading more about medicinal mushrooms, I thought I would give them a try, more so for adrenal and vitality and immune support to protect myself during COVID. But what I definitely found was that after the second, probably into the third bag, I no longer have any breast discomfort during my periods at all, to the point where sometimes I forget that my period is coming because I have no warning signs anymore. And I was sharing that with a friend of mine who is experiencing the same thing. And she recently sent me an email and she said, I'm on my third bag of mushrooms and I swear to God, I've got no more breast pain. So I would just say, from a PMS perspective, I know that, Carrie, you've been using the mushrooms for a while, but I've been promoting them a lot in my practice. I've written an article about them, which is on my website. Highly, highly recommend these. Bee pollen is another wonderful superfood, and all you need, oh, pardon me, for the medicinal mushrooms, if you get that bag that I was talking about, the 5 mushroom blend, or if you actually do have cancer, they have a 16 mushroom blend. Recommend that one for you. But all you need is 1 to 3 teaspoons. 1 to 3 teaspoons, and you just put it in a smoothie, and it's so simple. Some people will even mix it in a tea or a coffee or just make like an elixir out of it. But I personally put mine in my smoothie. Bee pollen is a natural plant-based protein, and it's just a teaspoon that you really need to make a difference, but it's also super high in all of your B vitamins. And so that's really, really helpful for women and for the stress response. Raw honey, of course, has lots of anti-cancer properties, antiviral, antibacterial properties. So if you're going to sweeten anything, I usually recommend using raw unpasteurized honey. Cacao, well, women, we all love our chocolate, but we just have to get it from the right source, right? So cacao is one of the highest antioxidants in the plant kingdom, and it's got one of the most concentrated forms of vitamin C in 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon daily. And so this is another superfood that I personally sprinkle into my smoothie in the morning. So I will use that along with the medicinal mushrooms and matcha, which I'll get to at the bottom. Goji berries are another superfood, super high in antioxidants, vitamin C, and anti-cancer properties. So a handful of these as a snack, or what you could do, because they're a little bit hard, you just put them in your tea. 16 is all you need. You put them in your tea and you allow that vitamin C and the antioxidants to seep in your tea. And once you've drank your tea, then you can eat the berries. They've softened, they're not as bitter. And so that's a little snack, little boost in your mid afternoon. Spirulina. So if you're doing more plant-based protein, spirulina is a really wonderful source of plant-based protein that gives you enough protein to match the same degree that a piece of meat would. And if you do have cancer, Dr. V says 5 teaspoons is a therapeutic dose to kill cancer cells. So wow, like between spirulina and flaxseed, those are two superfoods you can add in right away to help support your body. Maca is a wonderful superfood. It's a root and it's really good for hormone balancing. So if you have thyroid conditions, if you have estrogen dominant conditions, if you know your testosterone is low, your estrogen, progesterone are out of balance, maca is a great superfood to add into a smoothie as well. I personally have not used maca in a long time, but my feedback from my clients is 2 tablespoons, because you can use up to 2 tablespoons of it. It's too much. So 1 tablespoon in a smoothie tastes much better. As opposed to going into two. But therapeutically, like if we had to target something hormonally, like a thyroid condition, we may want to use two. So we would figure out another way to get that other tablespoon in without tainting the taste of a smoothie. And matcha. All right, ladies. So your green tea, this is way more potent than green tea, but the catechins in matcha green tea are so powerful that they may actually help prevent cancer, potentially making matcha one of the top natural cancer treatment options out there. And that's by the National Cancer Institute. So a teaspoon, because it's pretty high in, caffeine as well. So if you're caffeine sensitive like myself, I use maybe anywhere from a half to a full half teaspoon in my smoothie. So these are just ways that you can boost, and you certainly don't need to do all of them, but the ones that maybe resonated, it's such an easy way, especially if you feel like, you know what, my nutritional foundations are pretty good, I'm a good eater based on what Amy's telling me tonight, I'm going to take my diet to the next level and supercharge it with foods. And that's just another way to elevate and raise your vibration and your vitality. These are the next 3 slides are wonderful, just lists. We've already talked about the food, so I won't spend too much time here, but these are specific foods that just help balance the estrogens, our good estrogen, because we do need estrogen. We just want the right kind. So often these foods were already mentioned in the slides that we've talked about, but this is just a nice list to have, even if you wanted to, when you get your notes tomorrow, if you wanted to print it out and keep this list on your fridge, just so you know that these ones are coming in regularly. Foods that inhibit bad estrogen. So basically what this means is these ones balance the estrogen and progesterone ratio, and they just help prevent breast cancer. So again, we've talked about nearly all of these already, mostly coming through your vegetables, flax seeds, certain teas, and figs. Interesting, figs, right? And avoid estrogenic foods. So these are the most important to avoid. The soy-based products, soybeans, tofu, soy beverages, soybean oil, because these are estrogen dominant foods. They just naturally contain a lot of estrogen in them. And so if you're already an estrogen dominant type, then this just fuels the fire. Coffee, if you must drink coffee, organic, because they are heavily sprayed. The beans are heavily sprayed with the pesticides and herbicides. Cottonseed oil, we don't see too much, but you never know. Sometimes it's hidden in salad dressings. It's hidden in canned, like tinned fish, like sardines, for example. I've seen it. So just read ingredients. If you're a beer drinker, just know that the hops in beer are more estrogenic. Commercial chicken and commercial dairy products, these are just more estrogenic in the food, or they actually just promote more estrogen production. Um, Red clover, again, we don't see this too much. I'll see this sometimes in supplements, especially supplements that are good for constipation. So you wouldn't want to do red clover on a regular basis. Farm fish, because mostly it's being fed with soy pellets. And alcohol. Ladies, one of the greatest ways we can improve our hormonal balance and prevent breast cancer is to cut alcohol. Maximum 1 to 2 drinks a week. But I honestly, if you have any insulin issues, if you're dealing with weight issues, if you have any estrogen dominant conditions, I strongly encourage that alcohol comes right out of your diet. It's really important. Number one, because it's toxic to the liver, but number two, it's a great insulin spiker. And number three, it just very much acts as an estrogen promoting, food, beverage within the body. So really be mindful of how much alcohol you're drinking if you do drink. So let me put all of this theory into practice before we move to the next part of the lecture tonight. Basically, I've just given you some meal suggestions. These are just ideas to show you how to create an ideal breast healthy hormone balancing day that basically takes all of the theory that I've just given you and how to just put it into real practical ways. How can you see this actually working? So in the morning, of course, starting your day with water. If you choose to put essential oil in, that's great. If not, just squeeze some fresh lemon. If you wanted to, you could do, that should say a cup of green tea or matcha with some raw honey. But if you are doing intermittent fasting, honestly, just keep it at water. You don't want any spikes in cortisol with any caffeine. So although those are high antioxidant teas, if you're intermittent fasting, the idea is to not spike your insulin. And so by having sometimes honey or whatever, that could do that. But if you're more balanced and just eating regularly and rhythmically, then you don't have to worry about that so much. So breakfast, your first meal of your day could be a superfood smoothie. So if you go to my website, I have many of these recipes on my site in the recipe section, but there is a superfood smoothie on there. So you can use your protein powder of choice, water, a handful of baby kale. Little secret, Sunterra carries these great bags of farmed baby kale. They're awesome. I buy 3 at a time. I throw them in my freezer and then I just take a handful out. I like baby kale raw in a smoothie because it's easier to digest than getting the really big leafy kale leaves that are much more dense and they're just tougher. They're tougher to break down. So baby kale from Sunterra Market, really good. Broccoli sprouts, just put like a little pinch of sprouts in there. Half a cup of berries, a banana. If you don't want to use banana, maybe use strawberries, some ground flaxseed, and then add your superfoods. Teaspoon of matcha, 2 teaspoons of medicinal mushrooms. If you need maca, if you want bee pollen for more protein. So there's so many choices, but you can add up to 3 different superfoods into your smoothie and be supercharged. So that's one option. Eggs over half of an avocado, and then you can on that avocado top it with your sprouts and microgreens and pea shoots. Or do an egg and veggie omelet, and instead of doing toast, add in some sliced avocado for more good fat, for better energy production, and for hormonal production and satiation. If you're somebody that does well with grains, then long cooking oatmeal. So not instant oats, not oats put in a microwave and then eaten with no living enzymes left in it. So cooking on the stove top, and then once it's cooked, top it with some berries or pomegranate seeds because we know they're phytoestrogens, maybe bee pollen for some protein, or the hemp seeds and flaxseed as a combination. So you're getting some great omega-3s in there, but also some protein to help balance the carbohydrate from the oats, right? And then if you need to sweeten it, just a drop, just a little bit of stevia or just a little bit of honey. My husband, Dr. Joe, everybody loves his breakfast sausage. The recipe's on my website. And so you can make a bunch of these ahead of time, especially if you're a protein type person. These are just made with chicken or turkey or a combination, and you just make them into patties. You can freeze them and take them out and reheat them on the stovetop. Great for kids as well, for school and for breakfast too. But pile them up with greens, right? So sometimes I'll have one of these and then I'll pile it up with all my microgreens and broccoli sprouts and pea shoots. Or if I want more of a warmer breakfast, I'll chop it up and saute it with baby bok choy or another cruciferous vegetable like some kale or Swiss chard. And, don't shy away from soup for breakfast. It's so healing. It's so nutrient dense. It's a great way to stimulate the metabolic body as we just gently rise. This is especially great for people who don't have much of a digestive uh, power first thing in the morning or don't have much of an appetite. Soup is a great way to begin the day. If you are doing a mid-morning snack, you may not need this if you're not the grazer type, but these are just some options for snacks. And certainly these could be pulled into the mid-afternoon. But your nuts, your seeds, some figs, you could do an apple with nut butter, avocado with sea salt, or olives. So for lunch, salad, salad, and salad, beautiful, colorful salads, and get creative with the vegetables. Again, don't just choose a typical, handful of mixed greens that are in the box, and then maybe you just add some tomato and cucumber. Like really color it up and make it bright and exciting, and let it exude vitality. And put in so many of the cancer benefiting or promoting or preventing vegetables we talked about, and then any protein that you want on top of that. And then always, always don't forget the fat. So definitely put in your tablespoon of olive oil, maybe a little apple cider vinegar to stimulate digestion, and turmeric for anti-cancer properties. Or maybe you just have a leftover protein with a bowl of soup and you top that with hemp seeds, or lettuce wraps or coconut floured wraps. So basically, or nori. Nori is the seaweed again, and you can put in whatever protein you'd like. You can put in some shredded purple cabbage, some carrots, cucumbers, sprouts, pea shoots, and just have this really beautiful, colorful wrap. In the colder weather, maybe you desire a vegetarian or a bison chili over a bed of spinach, or again, maybe some soup with just a little side of olives so you're getting some good fat with your lunch. Mid-afternoon, gift yourself a cup of tea, a high antioxidant tea, and maybe you have that with some veggies and a dip that's got a good fat, some fresh coconut meat, or just buying some shredded unsweetened coconut, a fresh pressed vegetable juice. If you're out and about, stop and get a vegetable juice from local juicing bars. And that's a really great pick me up for vitality and getting lots of flavonoids into you. Or a cup of broth. Bone broth is very healing. And if you're not into eating chicken bone broth or beef bone broth, you can do veggie broths, which are high in potassium, or miso. Fermented miso would be also an okay food choice there. Or sea snacks. Those again are those little seaweed snacks. So those are just options. And then for dinner, it could be a chicken or a turkey breast, some broccoli and a salad, making sure, again, not to forget the fats added to the vegetables or on top of the salad. You could do burger patties without the bun and then load them up with beautiful vegetables and put lots of color there. You could do a meat sauce over spaghetti squash or over some chopped up kale. Or you could do a curry over a bed of sauteed beet greens. So you see where we're just trying to add these veggies in wherever we can to really enhance the nutrients that we need to be protective. We could do stir fries, whether we're using legumes or chicken or bison, lots of cruciferous vegetables in there, and then just cook that in a little bit of coconut and sesame oil. If you choose grain, you can put it over maybe a little bit of quinoa or some black rice, which is high in antioxidants, and then maybe top it with hemp seeds for your good fat. You could do a lighter supper, especially if you've done a larger lunch, then a lighter supper like a bowl of soup. You could do an omelet, you could do a salad for dinner, but a bowl of soup would be a really great thing to do, or some fish with different greens. So again, these are just ideas and you can mix and match and play around, but it just shows you how can I put all of this nutrient density, this nutritional vitality into my body so my cells are receiving what I need to be well, to fight cancer, to prevent it, to recover from it, and just to have overall hormonal health and ideally optimal health. And then in the evening, maybe a cup of herbal tea, chamomile, because we know, again, it's phytoestrogen, or dandelion for our liver. And of course, if we need our square of chocolate, just make sure it's high quality, good chocolate, or some raw cacao at this time would be good. So you will get all of this in your notes. I just want to talk briefly about supplements before we go into the next part of the lecture. So foundational supplements are important. Here's the truth, ladies, is that we can't get everything we need from our food. We just can't. Our soils are depleted. They sit in the grocery stores and in our refrigerators for far too long, so the nutrient vitality of the food does become depleted over time. And the truth is that our stress levels and our environmental toxic load that we're exposed to every day taxes the system. So we need some nutrients, some foundational key nutrients to just keep our buckets full. We don't want to become depleted, right? We want to make sure we have the key nutrients to keep us well, to allow all our cells to do what they need to be well. So I recommend, again, doTERRA's Lifelong Vitality Pack as an overall general supplement formula. It's a multivitamin and mineral. It's a cellular vitality complex, which is all your antioxidants. So we're talking about turmeric and pomegranate and green tea and resveratrol, ginger. So there's so many great cancer protectors in there, and just an omega-3. So that comes in a trio. It's in a box and it comes in 3 bottles. So you know you're hitting all your foundations. And if you're interested in that pack, please let me know and I will send you a PDF about the whole pack and what it does in your body, so you're knowledgeable about it. And if it resonates with you, I can set you up and you can order them and they'll be delivered to your door. So super simple, but they are highly absorbable nutrients. The science that's gone on behind what they've put into each of their formulas is unbelievable. And it's just amazing, even as I'm listening to lots of different lectures and even ones on breast cancer, some of the key nutrients that we need are input into these formula, into this lifelong vitality pack. So for me personally, I've been taking it for probably 6 years, and I just always feel like it's my insurance policy. Like, it's just, okay, I'm covered without having to think about all of these key things that I need to have. Vitamin D is so important for breast health, breast cancer prevention. 2 to 4,000 IUs is sort of the maintenance dose, but sometimes when we do have breast cancer, we could potentially double that. I don't go as high as 10,000 personally, as I'm recommending to people, but I've seen functional medical doctors often will recommend much higher doses if there is actually breast cancer there. If we need the primrose and borage oil, we can add those in if we're in menopause. And then again, the citrus oils, because so high in glutathione. I mean, there's so many benefits. I'm going to teach an essential oil session next month if you'd like to learn more. But there's so many benefits. But specifically for this lecture tonight, the glutathione that you're getting from a drop of citrus oil is so important. It's one of their most potent antioxidants. So really, really key to help with a lot of our detoxification pathways. Often we need digestion support. So enzymes are available through doTERRA, probiotics are available, and then considerations for personalized issues. So if you know you have an estrogen dominant condition, if you know that you have a hard time metabolizing estrogens, then definitely EstroSense by Lorna Vanderheg is a fabulous product, and it's got all of the key nutrients to help pull out excess estrogens and support liver detoxification. If you have a thyroid issue or an adrenal issue, she also has products called ThyroSense and AdrenaSense. And sometimes for my clients that I see that have a lot of hormonal havoc in the body, I do all 3, and it makes a tremendous difference. In about 3 to 4 months, we see such improvements in hormones. And then Zendocrine, doTERRA has a great detoxification formula, and it just helps to open up all your elimination pathways and balance the endocrine system. So the point is, there's so many things that are available out there. I always recommend doing a personalized supplement session with me to know exactly what your body needs. But truly, for just basic foundational supplements, these top ones are really important. Okay. And essential oils are plant medicine, and there's very specific ones for breast health. Frankincense is one of the most amazing oils for any cancer generally, but it really does help to slow spread, and it helps to shrink tumor size. Thyme, grapefruit, yarrow palm, eucalyptus is a great one to decongest the breast. And they have a beautiful blend called DDR. It's their cellular complex blend. And this one is specifically targeted if you've been going through radiation, chemotherapy, if there's a lot of oxidative stress in the cells, cellular damage, if we need to do repair. DDR Prime is a beautiful formula that's got some of the top essential oils to help with DNA repair of cells. It's quite amazing. So there's a lot of cancer research being done on these essential oils in particular. And so it's the doTERRA oils that are being used in the research for cancer, and some really, really interesting and amazing results are being had. So oftentimes we can massage these into the breast. So even during our cycles, if you do have uncomfortable breasts or you have fibrocystic breast lumps, you can massage frankincense into the breast. You can massage eucalyptus and grapefruit into the breast. These can also be put on the soles of the feet to help aid in immune support, antioxidant support, anti-inflammatory support. So there's many different ways to use the oils. And again, I'll teach more of them in depth next month, but potency is very strong. So whenever you're using an essential oil, it's 1 to 3 drops a day. Or at a time that you would be using it. So you don't need a lot to make a difference, but 1 drop can really, really change what's happening to your cellular health. So these ones are just interesting. And again, happy to share more of that information in a more of a personalized and customized session. Let's talk about environmental toxicity. The biggest thing, and I keep saying the word xenoestrogens. So here's the thing is that we can't control all of the environmental toxins that we're exposed to every day. And the truth is we live in a toxic world. And so our job is to make sure that we stay above it by detoxing our liver, by eating liver supporting food, by adding the lemon in the water to detox the liver, by doing some cleanses every few months. You know, this is really important to just keep things detoxifying, because the worst thing we want to do is recirculate our toxins in the body. And even just from a weight perspective, again, that's one of the main reasons why women struggle losing weight despite all their best efforts with food and exercise, is because they're recirculating toxins, and the liver needs support and the elimination pathways need support. But here's something very interesting, and maybe some of you saw my little video I did on Instagram last week. But before a woman goes downstairs to eat breakfast, on average, she's putting anywhere from 15 to 20 cosmetics on her body care products. So if you actually tomorrow morning have a shower, I want you to count how many you're using, from your shampoo to your soap, anything you use in your shower, to your deodorant, to your face creams, to your makeup, to your body creams, anything else you put in your hair. Count every single thing that you use. And then ask yourself, do I even know what the ingredients are in these products? Because what we put on our body goes into our body. We absorb it through our skin, and it gets congested in the lymph nodes, and it can absolutely impact our estrogen. So many of the compounds that are in our body care products are called xenoestrogens. They are estrogen mimickers. And what happens is that they're man-made. So they're very similar in structure to the body's own estrogen. And these compounds are stored in the fat cells, and they contribute to the hormonal havoc. So they create what I call an estrogen stew. And so what we need to do is make sure we're not filling our cellular or our estrogen receptors up with these things. We want to clear the body of these, and we want to prevent them from coming in. So they can come through from pesticides. That's why I'm saying organic wherever possible. We get xenoestrogens from conventional beef because, especially in American beef, they're being treated with hormones, right? A non-steroidal estrogen is Zeranol. That's a kind of a non-steroidal estrogen. Dairy products have high levels of sex hormones. As I said, it's estrogenic. Our cosmetics, specifically anything with a paraben. So read your ingredients, ladies. Parabens, phthalates, those are the big ones that we want to watch in any of our cosmetics. The plastics, and please never put food in plastics. Really try to avoid that, especially hot food. Cleaning chemicals. So we inhale all of this, we touch it, and so much of that is toxic to the body.
Drier fabric softener sheets are also quite toxic and can contribute to this estrogen, xenoestrogen issue. Farmed fish, bleaching chemicals found in tampons and pads. Ladies, if you are not using organic tampons at this point, please. And when you're beginning to teach your girls how to use pads and tampons, only organic. What we insert vaginally gets absorbed, and that's really important. And then be mindful of your pharmaceuticals, because many of these also have some, are synthetic estrogens, birth control pills, spermicides. These can all definitely enhance the bad estrogens. So really, really be careful of this and choose product lines that are natural. Again, doTERRA has a beautiful, not only essential oils and supplements, but they have cleaning products, body care products. Beauty Counter is a great makeup line that does all natural stuff. So, just be mindful and read and know what you're putting on your body, because again, what we put on it, we absorb it. And so put the very best clean into the system. All right, stress, the next contributing factor. We want to watch stress. We all have stress. We can't live without it, just like we can't live without the toxins within our world, but we can counter it every day. But I want to just share what happens with stress, because it's really a big domino effect to our hormones. But what we know is that continuous stress definitely increases our cortisol levels, which ultimately increases our estrogen. And when our adrenals become really fatigued, that also affects the ability for our thyroid to function really well. And so we really want to make sure that we are taking care of our stress response on a daily basis. This looks like a big slide, but I'm going to just quickly kind of go through this, because I want you to understand what happens with our stress and how that impacts our hormones, which can ultimately be a trigger for breast cancer. So if we're constantly stressed and we constantly need our cortisol being secreted, what happens is that cortisol over time becomes depleted. And so our ability to cope with stress becomes lessened, and we might find stressful events more exhausting. We may get burnt out. We might find we're more emotional. We just can't handle what we used to be able to handle. But what also happens is that cortisol, we go into this cortisol shunt, and it affects all of our other hormonal pathways. So when we are stressed, our bile shuts off, and that means that we don't digest our food very well. So I can't tell you how many women I see that are constantly bloated, dealing with PMS. And when we don't really produce enough bile because of too much stress, we can also create gallstones. So lots of women have their gallbladder removed. So what will happen is this will also increase the toxic load in the body, making it difficult to remove those toxins. So when this happens, our androgens shut off, which contributes to mineral loss, acidifying the body. That causes dehydration, more bloating, and for some women, bladder incontinence and low sex drive. Then when the androgens aren't being produced, and that means testosterone is not being produced at high enough levels. And so our muscle mass becomes flabby. We increase our body fat, we increase more anger and aggression, and we dip our sex drive. And when that happens, then estrogen, our good estrogen, doesn't get produced and made to the degree that it needs to. And so those receptor sites get filled up with the environmental estrogens, and that we know can contribute to estrogen dominant conditions. We also know progesterone is made in the adrenal glands. So the more stress we have, the less progesterone we're making, which also alters the estrogen-progesterone balance. And when progesterone's low, that actually creates a lot of neuro issues for women. Foggy brain, poor memory, poor concentration, depression, and anxiety. So this is what we see happen in perimenopause and menopause. A lot of women go through mental and emotional imbalance because of the progesterone issue. When that happens, DHEA, which is our anti-aging hormone, also shuts down and doesn't get produced very much. And that causes weight gain, poor muscular strength, and really impacts your ability to burn fat. So it's really, really difficult when your cortisol is burnt out and your DHEA is low. Good luck trying to lose weight. And that's why so many women in their 50s and beyond have such a struggle. So taking care of it now in our 40s is essential. One of the greatest things we can do to prevent menopausal symptoms is balance our adrenal glands in our early 40s, mid 40s into our 50s. So it's so, so important. And so when all of these hormones go through this cortisol shunt and all start to be less, not produced properly, we just create hormonal havoc. We don't produce our hormones at optimum, optimum amounts, and it can create a whole host of issues, anything from depression to thyroid to inflammatory issues. So the key point here is that we don't get breast cancer just like that. It is coming through a very long line of issues that we don't take care of because maybe we're not aware of, or we think, oh, my stress isn't so bad, I'm fine, I'll just handle it, I'll rest next week. We have to take care of things now. This is really, really important for prevention. So how we do that: gifting ourselves 30 minutes of downtime every day. Using essential oils can lower your cortisol in a matter of minutes. Literally, smelling lavender can lower your cortisol in 7 minutes. I did give aroma touch treatments, which are beautiful to turn down the stress response, boost the immune system. It's just a beautiful essential oil treatment to also help turn down inflammation and create balance in the body. Taking a bath at night with Epsom salts and adding some essential oil, meditating, deep breathing, oxygenation is so important to the health of our cells. Being in nature, it's one of the most underrated nutrients. I call it vitamin N. It's nature. Tree hugging pacifies the parasympathetic state. If you've never hugged a tree, go and hug a tree. It doesn't matter what you look like doing it, just hug a tree and you will feel completely grounded. Your parasympathetic system will be awakened and you will realize how calm you will feel, and you'll realize how then stressed you were before. We don't realize the stress we carry, and also we are bombarded by environmental stress like noise, like pollutants, like electromagnetic frequencies that we're surrounded by constantly. And being in nature helps us to regulate our nervous system. And it's one of the most things we're missing out on. So highly recommend that. Get massages, spa treatments, do lymphatic drainage, or come to me. I do another kind of essential oil therapy called Symphony of the Cells. There's a lymphatic protocol that really helps to detox and flush the system. Have silence. Do yoga, moderately exercise, and do any artistic pursuits that allow for creative expression. That's so good to awaken the feminine within us because we often live in a very masculine dominant world. So doing creative pursuits is very important for feminine health. Rebounding, so jumping on those rebounding trampolines is so good to regulate the nervous system, but also very good to detox the lymphatic system. Infrared saunas, one of the most wonderful ways to detox the body, but also to create calm and relaxation. And if you need adrenal support, doTERRA has a wonderful one called Mito 2 Max or Adrena Sense, but anything that has ashwagandha in it, rhodiola, these are fabulous herbs, plant medicines that we can use to help support the adrenal glands and just take the edge off and help us handle and be resilient to our day-to-day stress. So there's lots there, but if you are not tapping in here and taking some time for stress reduction every day, just know that that will have a long-term impact on your hormones and on your breast health. All right, ladies, we're rounding out to the end here. I'm going to try to get what I can here in the next 15 minutes. We're moving now into the mental, emotional, and soulful nourishment. And this is really, really important to talk about because so often we focus just on the physical, the physical, the physical. We don't ever consider what's going on in our mental and emotional field and in our soul's calling that might be contributing to our health challenges and to the manifestation of illness like breast cancer. So our body tells the story of our lives. It truly is the history book of all that's happened to us in our lives. And every thought and emotion has an impact and is actually stored in the cells. Your body can listen. It feels what you're feeling and what you're saying. And what we know is that unresolved conflicts and stresses do really get stuck in the cells. And so that's important. I have a lot of women that come to see me for weight loss, of course. And we could try many different things. And sometimes things don't budge nutritionally. or with exercise. And sometimes they don't budge with detoxification. And so we really need to explore what's going on in the mental and emotional field. And often it's the unresolved conflicts that are stored and stuck in the cells that don't allow for the biology, the physiology to shift. It doesn't allow for the metabolic body to move. And it's not until we resolve these conflicts that the physiological body can actually change. Because when we are dealing with an unresolved conflict or a trauma or a daily stress, we stay stuck in the sympathetic mode. The sympathetic system shuts down digestion, and it really does shut down our ability to be metabolically effective. And so we need to open up the parasympathetic where healing happens. And that's where we resolve our conflicts. When we resolve conflicts, the parasympathetic body opens up and we heal and we digest and we absorb and we assimilate our nutrients and we can burn body fat and we can detoxify, etc. There are some very key emotions and traumas and shocks that have been associated with breast cancer. One of them is which is black and white thinking. So this is through the work of Dr. DeMartini, which I'll talk about in a minute. But very black and white thinkers, all or nothing mentality, like no middle, no gray. And that black and white thinking can create a lot of oscillation, a lot of stress in the immune system, but it can really, really create like a weakened immune system and making you more susceptible to chronic disease. A nest worry conflict or a separation conflict, which we'll talk about in a minute here as well, which just basically means that you're worried about something within your nest, or you're having a separation from your children or from your partner, but it's a shock. It's so just because you're worried about your kids, as we all do, doesn't mean you're going to manifest breast cancer. Don't think that. But if we have a true shock or conflict, that can definitely be a trigger. Louise Hay's work, she talks about a refusal to nourish yourself. So putting everybody else needs first, but not taking care of yourself. She says that can be a trigger for breast cysts, breast lumps, breast cancer. And over mothering and being overprotective and having also overbearing attitudes can also be contributing factors. And I truly believe a lack of mission and purpose in life can also contribute. And I'll talk about that at the very end. So there's lots of different things. I want to with you. It's called German New Medicine. And I studied this many years ago, and German New Medicine looks at the possible emotional shock and trauma that is a perceived shock or trauma. So for example, you and I may see an accident or have an accident, and my perception of it could be much different than yours. So just because we worry about something, like I said, or have something bad happen, it doesn't mean we're going to manifest breast cancer, but it's your perceived shock that will determine what emotions and what part of the brain get turned on. And every part of the brain correlates to a different organ system. So in German New Medicine, they've done brain mapping and tracked which parts of the brain correlate to the organs and which pathways get turned on under specific shocks and traumas. So on an emotional level, a woman predominantly experiences the bond with her child as well as her partner in her breasts. And this is why breast cancer is a very dominant condition in women. And so there's two types of breast cancer that we talk about in German New Medicine that have a specific shock or trauma correlated to it. One of which is breast gland carcinoma. And that's when there's a mother-child or partner worry conflict. So the conflict is a worry about the child or the partner, or it's a nest conflict. So you're just worried about your home, your domain. And then there's a milk duct ulceration cancer, and that's often linked to a separation conflict. So again, you're feeling like your child's been separated from your breast, or you're having a separation issue with your partner, or you're having a fear of separating. And so according to German New Medicine, it says a woman doesn't develop glandular or intraductal breast cancer without a reason. And so I share this just out of interest. I think it's very interesting, and usually always in my nutritional consultations, no matter what condition a person is presenting with, I'm always asking what the possible emotional trigger is, because we can't ignore it. Like I said, we can't just stay on the physical level and expect that everything has to be changed through the physical level. We always want to be aware of what potentially could have triggered this from an emotional perspective. And so, again, you're going to get these notes, but basically how we how we manifest one of these cancers all depends on whether you're a right-handed woman or left-handed woman and what part of the brain is impacted. But basically, just for time's sake, I'm not going to read these through because you're going to get it. But basically, it's just, I just want to share this out of interest, because if you know somebody that has breast cancer that may have had one of these shocks or traumas, the work then is to resolve the shock or trauma. And that's what's really, really important, because that can change what's happening to the immune system, to the hormonal system, and to the sympathetic system or the nervous system. This is very, very important. I want to share a client story to make more sense of this, okay? So I had a client many years ago who presented with polycystic ovarian syndrome, fertility challenges, and weight issues. And so she was in a program working out with a personal trainer 5 days a week and came to see me to do the nutritional side of things. And when we looked at her diet, I thought it was a nutritional no-brainer. She was eating up to 9 grains a day, refined. She was eating no essential fat. Her protein and vegetable, they were fine, I would say. But I really, truly thought if we just like switched, got rid of the insulin issue that she was having and really switched her fat and carbohydrate intake, the weight would come off and her hormones would help to regulate, and it would be easy. So after a month of doing nutritional changes and working out with her trainer 5 days a week, there was absolutely no budge in her weight. And so I had to go dig deeper, and I started to ask her what when she was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, if there was anything specific that happened within about 6 to 9 months before she developed these issues. And she said that, well, yeah, I went through a major change in my life. And according to German New Medicine, anything to do with the ovaries has to do with a significant loss conflict. So I asked her specifically, was there any loss going on in your life at that time? And she said, well, yeah, I lost everything. I cheated on my fiance at the time. I lost him. I lost his family. My family disowned me. They were really unhappy with me. And all my friends left me because they were really his friends. So everything she knew as stability was completely gone because of the affair that she had had. And so that had happened. She'd been holding on to that for, I believe the time frame was 9 years until she had come to see me. She held on to so much shame and guilt about the affair that she had had. And so what we had to do is go in and resolve the conflict around the affair that she had and resolve the shame and guilt. And we did that through the method that I have called the DiMartini method. And it's something that I have studied for 17 years. For as long as I've practicing nutrition, I've been doing the DiMartini work. And it's a series of questions that helps you to equilibrate your mind and shift your perceptions about events that have been taking place in your life. It helps you to take any disorder and chaos and help you to see the hidden order and benefits of blessings, and help you to become very grateful and see just the magnificence and everything that's happened in this issue that you're dealing with. And so I walked her through this method, and it's a 2.5 hour session. And when we finished the session, we looked at many different things. We did the full series of questions in the method. We helped her resolve the guilt, the shame, showed her how it served her husband, herself, her family, that she had the affair. She realized that if she never had the affair, she would be not living according to her values. She'd be living according to his and his family's. She'd not found the man of her dreams. She found her soulmate through the affair, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in the session, by the end, she looked like she had de-aged. She looked like she looked younger. To the point where I told her she had to go look in the mirror. And when she went home, her husband even just said, what the hell happened to you? Because she looked different. She was very strong, very stoic, very masculine, very protected armor around her. And after this session, she softened. And so we followed up about a month later, and she had lost, I believe it was 7 pounds in that month. After doing the DiMartini method session. And so what that means is that all of that shock, all of that guilt, all of that shame, all that emotion got resolved. Her parasympathetic system opened up, so all of the metabolic pathways could work again. And she lost the pounds because finally all the good stuff with her nutrition and the personal training, it started to work. But I truly believe that if she didn't go through and resolve that emotional issue, she'd still be in estrogen dominance. She would still have fertility challenges. And by the way, a year later, she had a baby. And she probably would end up with breast cancer because she had the line of estrogen dominant issues leading up to it and the emotional stress she never would have resolved. So the power of shifting perceptions and using this method, it's what I use in my work, is my main tool that I use to help people resolve the unresolved. It's powerful, it's profound, it's transformational, and I've seen it over and over and over again improve people's physiological health because we've balanced the emotional state. And so it's just something so important that I like to share in this session, because sometimes we have to really look at ourselves and look at what's going on in our lives that's not feeling right and that's stuck somewhere within the body, and resolve that in order for healing to happen, in order for it to be the catalyst for healing to happen. Lastly, let's talk about soul. So I truly believe that one of the major reasons we manifest illness is because we're not living according to our soul's calling. We're not listening to our soul. We're not on path. One of my great mentors and teachers, and the man that I started my career with, Dr. Bruce Hoffman, I was just listening to a lecture of his last week, and he said something so it was just so beautifully said, but he said every illness is homesick, or every illness is homesickness. And I thought that was so beautiful, because oftentimes we manifest illness as a way to wake us up and get us back on path. And sometimes when we go through a cancer scare and we're dealing with cancer, sometimes that's our opportunity to really self-reflect and really get us back on path to really truly live according to what we value, and to really live according to what our soul is asking us to do that maybe we've ignored for many, many years. And when we ignore our soul's calling, then what happens often is we get these physiological feedback systems as a way to knock on the door to wake us up. And if we don't listen to these symptoms over time, then often what happens is we get the universal feedback system, which is the big scare. It's the big health crisis. And so the key is we want to live with purpose today. We want to fill our day up every day with things we love to do, that we're inspired to do, that fulfill us. Because when we don't do what we love to do, we gravitate, we lose energy, we create resentment, we create emotional eating issues because we're trying to bring pleasure and joy into our day because we didn't receive it from doing what we truly love. So in my work, I teach a lot of women how to fill their day with the things that they highly value, that they would choose to do, love to do, and like to do. Because so many women live from a place of, I have to do this, I need to do this, I should do this. And when we live from that place, we're living in lower minded consciousness, and we're not awakening our soul's true potential. And when we shunt our potential and we shunt our soul, the body knocks on the door so loud until we hear it and open it and go through it and do the personal work and transformation we need to do to make change in our life. So it's a really, really big thing. And I also find a lot of women, as they, have put so much of their life's purpose into their family, as the nest begins to leave. So as the kids leave the home and the husband starts to retire, women sometimes don't know what their purpose is anymore. And so it's an opportunity at this phase in life to really reassess and really see what you would love to do. Because truly, I see women take off. Like, they take off in their mid to late 50s, 60s, 70s, and they do amazing things while the men are starting to slow down, retire, and put their feet up and watch TV all day. Not all men, but the point is just that it's an opportunity for women to fully step into our queendom. I like to call it our queendom, and to just grab onto this new phase of life and really empower yourself so that you don't fill your time and space up with illness and with fatigue and with boredom and emotional eating, etc., etc. So sometimes the gift in the illness is the wake up call to do what we would love to do. So I encourage all women to do that. So, ladies, what do we do now? I've just shared a wealth of knowledge in 2 hours with you. There's so much to consider and look at. And again, my intention is never to overwhelm, it's to inspire, to educate, and guide. And so I hope that what I've shared has been helpful, has been eye-opening, has been confirming. Maybe you've already done things, like I said, that you feel like you're good at, but now you can try some new things. But what we do next is I'm going to encourage you to reread the notes. I'm going to send them out to you tomorrow, reread them, review them, and really highlight what you want to incorporate. And whatever you took for your own personal notes, really do start to do those right away, because those are your game changers, your personal game changers. Consider a nutritional consultation with me. If you really want to know what's going on for your own body type, if you want to do a NutriBody analysis that detects all your nutrient levels, your organ systems, hormonal health, if you want to know your body type and how to best feed that, come in and do personalized nutrition, because there's so much nutritional noise out there. It's so confusing and conflicting. We all want to know what's best for each and every one of us. And so this is where I can certainly come in and support you. It's also important to know what supplements and essential oils your body needs to help bring it to a more optimum state. And so I have a scan that I use for people. It's just a handheld scanner that will help to determine what your body is resonating with and what you need in the moment. Symphony of the Cells treatments are so powerful. This is when I use the gift of nature's medicine. I use plant medicine in a tree. It's called Symphony of the Cells, and there's 16 different protocols. If you do have breast cancer, come and get the Maxim protocol. And I layer 10 essential oils on your spine and feet and give you the most beautiful treatment to put you in the parasympathetic state and receive the oils specifically targeted for cancer. There's a hormonal protocol, a lymphatic one. If you're dealing with anxiety and adrenal fatigue, there's a solar protocol. So all of these are on my website in the aromatherapy section under Symphony of the Cells. If you have an issue that needs to be resolved, please come and see me for a DiMartini method. It takes a matter of hours to help you shift your perceptions and shift your physiology. It's so powerful. So please, if there's anything that's blocking you from living your fullest potential, or that you physically feel stuck in your body, like if you're holding on to emotions somewhere in your body, that's so important. And then soulful nourishment, if you're stuck on that, if you need some help with figuring out what are my values now, they've changed, I don't really know what I'm meant to do anymore, how can I fulfill my life, then come in and do a soulful nourishment session. So there's so many things to consider. um, I was just triggered to share one final story, if you don't mind. But when I was talking just about where do you feel things in your body, I have a personal story. Actually, it's a story that awakened me to using essential oils. But quite a few years ago, I went through a very high stress situation with my family. And it was really to do with my parents, about them going through a major life change, a very stressful time in their lives. And for me, I carried that emotion and stress. I carried it through anger. I was very irritable, very angry, just blowing up, just really fiery, not in my nature, not in balance. And the emotion, I felt it stuck. It was very close to my heart, but it was also very close to my breast. And I just felt the energy and the emotion stuck. It was trapped there. And I knew that I needed some support. And so in my circle of healers and friends and colleagues in the wellness world, there was one woman in particular, Shelly Shahanahy, who did energy release work. And I knew I needed to see her. So I called her up. I hadn't seen her for about 7 years. And I got on her table. She also does cranial sacral therapy. And she had me inhale essential oils, which I'd never really been privy to before. I'd heard about them, but never used them. And I just intuitively said, Shelly, can you put some on my fingers? Because I have to rub, I just need to keep rubbing that into my heart and around my breast area. And on that table, in the hour and a half, she did her work on me, and we continually used the essential oils. And I had a huge emotional release. As I've said before, I puked tears. Like I just was a blabbering mess. And something resolved in me, because when I got off that table, there was no blocked blocked emotion there, and I felt better, and then I began in a week using essential oils, and the irritability was gone, all of the anger issues were gone, just something shifted. But I share the story because I feel like if I never would have taken care of that emotional block and that issue that I was dealing with that had a strong, shock and trauma in my own life, that could have led to something more serious. And so I share the story because so many of us deal with shocks and traumas and we sweep them under the rug and we don't deal with them. But if we don't, my fear is that it can manifest into that universal smackdown message, the wake up call that finally gets us to do something about something. And I'm just encouraging you to not let it go that far. Every symptom, every hormonal issue you might be experiencing, anything along the way, you tackle it now so that you don't get to the point of a breast cancer. And if you do get breast cancer, there's so many natural remedies and healing things you can do. And even if you're choosing conventional treatments, you can complement that with natural things that we've spoken about tonight. But deal with the unresolved conflicts and find your soul's purpose and your mission and your calling, because to me, those are your greatest healers and your greatest chances of conquering and getting into revitalization and vitality once again. So that is our session. I will end it there. I just want to share my gratitude again for you ladies that joined the call. I hope this was valuable to you. I hope that it inspired you, and I hope that you take away the key messages that will shift your life. I trust that I will see you at the next perfect time, and I will be in your inbox again tomorrow morning with the notes and hopefully the recording of the session. Cross fingers that it worked. So other than that, if you need anything, I am here for you. And again, just thank you so much for your presence and the time that you took to come tonight. So thank you so much. I will actually unmute if you do have any questions. I don't mind staying on for a little longer. So if you'd like, I can unmute you all. But if you have questions, if not, I will see you at the next perfect time. If anybody has a question, you can just raise. I don't know that I could see everybody. No questions? All right. Well, I'll still unmute you all so you can all say goodbye.
Thanks, Amy.
You're so welcome.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
Amy.
You're welcome. Nice to see you all.
Take care.
Okay, you too.